3 seconds. That was all the time separating life from a bloodbath in the VIP section of the Obsidian. A Glock 19 slid across the polished mahogany table, spinning like a roulette wheel, before stopping dead in front of Damon Cross. The room went silent, that heavy, suffocating silence that smells like expensive cologne and gunpowder. Damon didn't reach for the weapon. Instead, he looked at the trembling girl holding a tray of scotch, a cruel smirk twisting his lips. He thought she was just furniture. He thought she was invisible. "If you're so smart, honey," he spat, pointing at the Russian warlord opposite him, "then tell me what he just said before I put a bullet in his head." He expected her to cry. He didn't expect her to save his empire. New York City doesn't sleep, but it definitely hallucinates. Especially at 3:00 a.m. in the meat-packing district, where the cobblestones are slick with rain and secrets. Lydia Hart adjusted the collar of her uniform, wincing as the stiff fabric dug into her neck. She wasn't supposed to be here. By all logical metrics, a 24-year-old doctoral candidate in computational linguistics from Columbia University should be asleep or at least crying over a thesis on the semiotic variance in Proto-Slavic dialects. Instead, she was carrying a tray worth more than her tuition at the Obsidian, a members-only supper club that didn't appear on Google Maps and required a retina scan to enter. Lydia needed the money. Her mother's medical bills at Mount Sinai were bleeding her dry, and the scholarship stipend barely covered rent in her shoebox apartment in Queens. So she became invisible. That was the first rule of the Obsidian. You are not a person. You are a ghost with a serving tray. Table 4 needs a refresh. Top shelf. The Macallan, 1926. The floor manager, a nervous man named Arthur, who sweated through his suits, hissed at her. "And for God's sake, Hart, don't look them in the eye. Mr. Cross is in a mood." Damon Cross. Even the air conditioning seemed to drop 5 degrees when his name was spoken. The tabloids called him a venture capitalist and a shipping magnate. The FBI files, the ones Lydia's ex-boyfriend, a paralegal, had drunkenly hinted at, called him the capo di tutti I capi of the reorganized East Coast syndicate. He wasn't the old-school mobster eating spaghetti in a tracksuit. Damon Cross wore bespoke Tom Ford spoke with the diction of a senator and dismantled his enemies with the precision of a surgeon. Lydia took the crystal tumblers. Understood. She moved through the dimly lit room. The walls were lined with black velvet absorbing sound. It was designed for privacy, designed for conspiracy. At table 4, the atmosphere was toxic. Damon Cross sat at the head, his posture relaxed but coiled like a panther lounging on a tree branch. He was devastatingly handsome, in a sharp, terrifying way. Dark hair swept back, eyes the color of cold steel, and a scar cutting through his left eyebrow that ruined his perfection just enough to make him unforgettable. Opposite him sat 3 men who looked like they were carved out of granite. Russians, specifically the Bratva. The man in the middle, a bear of a human being with gold teeth and tattoos creeping up his neck, was yelling in a rapid-fire dialect that sounded like stones grinding together. Damon's translator, a sweaty little man named Peterson, was pale. He was shaking so hard, his glasses were sliding down his nose. Lydia approached the table silently, placing the glasses down on coasters. Clink. Clink. "He says," Peterson stammered, wiping his forehead with a handkerchief. "He says the price is too high, Mr. Cross. He says the shipment routes are not secure." Damon didn't look at Peterson. He looked at the Russian. "Tell him the price is the price. The routes are guaranteed by the port authority." Peterson translated into Russian. The Russian bear laughed a wet, ugly sound and slammed his fist on the table. He rattled off another string of harsh words, gesturing wildly at Damon, then at the door. He says he is insulted, Peterson squeaked. He says he will take his business to the triads if you do not lower the fee by 20%. Lydia froze. She was pouring the scotch, her hand hovering over the crystal glass. She knew Russian. She had studied it for 6 years. But what the man had said wasn't about fees. It wasn't about the triads. Tell the American dog that the sniper is already on the roof. When I stand up, his head opens. That was what the Russian had actually said. Lydia's heart hammered against her ribs. She looked at Peterson. Why was he lying? Was he incompetent? She glanced at Peterson's hands. They weren't just shaking from fear. He was tapping his thumb against his thigh in a rhythmic pattern. 1, 2. 1, 2. A signal. Peterson was a mole. Lydia had a choice. She could walk away. She was a waitress. She was invisible. If Damon Cross got his head blown off, the world might be a better place. But if the shooting started, everyone in this room was collateral damage, including her. She finished pouring the scotch. She didn't move away. Damon Cross sighed, leaning forward to pick up his glass. He swirled the amber liquid, looking bored. 20%. Tell him I don't do discounts. The Russian grinned, showing the gold teeth. He placed his hands on the arms of his chair, bracing to stand up. The signal. Lydia's throat went dry. If he stood up, Damon died. And then the crossfire would kill her. Wait, Lydia whispered. It was quiet, but in the tension of the room it sounded like a gunshot. Every head at the table snapped toward her. The Russian looked confused. Peterson looked terrified. But Damon Cross looked amused. He turned his head slowly, his steel eyes locking onto hers. It felt like being scanned by a weapon system. Did the furniture just speak? Damon asked, his voice low and smooth, like velvet dragged over gravel. Arthur, the manager, materialized out of the shadows, looking like he was about to have a heart attack. Mr. Cross, I am so sorry. This girl is new. She's hot. Get back to the kitchen immediately. No, Damon said, raising a hand. He didn't break eye contact with Lydia. She has something to say, don't you, sweetheart? Lydia clutched the empty tray against her chest, like a shield. I just... Speak up, Damon commanded. The amusement vanished, replaced by a cold authority that made her knees weak. You interrupted a $10 million negotiation. It better be good. The Russian barked something in his native tongue, a derogatory comment about women that made Lydia's ears burn. Damon glanced at the Russian, then back to Lydia. He leaned back, spreading his arms. Well, we're waiting. The translation, Lydia said, her voice trembling but gaining strength. It's wrong. Peterson jumped out of his seat. This is preposterous. She's a waitress. What does she know? I have a master's degree from Yale. Damon looked at Peterson, then at the gun he kept holstered under his jacket. He pulled the weapon out, a matte black Glock, and slid it across the table. It spun and stopped, pointing vaguely at the Russian. If you're so smart, honey. Damon mocked, his eyes glittering with a dangerous challenge. Then translate it. Tell me what he just said before I put a bullet in his head. Or maybe yours. It was a test, a cruel, sadistic game. He didn't believe her. He just wanted to humiliate her before he fired her. Lydia looked at the gun. Then she looked at the Russian, whose smile had faltered. "He didn't say the price was too high," Lydia said, her voice ringing clear in the silent room. "And he didn't mention the triads." She switched to flawless Russian, the vowels rolling off her tongue with a perfect St. Petersburg accent. She looked directly at the Russian boss. "I know about the sniper on the roof, Volkov. Sit down, or you will be the one who does not leave tonight." The Russian's face went white. He froze halfway out of his chair. Damon's eyes narrowed. He didn't understand the words, but he understood the reaction. The predator in him woke up. Lydia switched back to English, looking straight at Damon. He said, "Tell the American dog that the sniper is already on the roof. When I stand up, his head opens. Your translator is lying to you, Mr. Cross. He's setting you up for an execution." The silence that followed was absolute. Damon didn't look at Lydia anymore. He looked at Peterson. Peterson was sweating so profusely now that drops were hitting the table. "Mr. Cross, she's crazy. Damon moved faster than Lydia thought humanly possible. He didn't reach for the gun on the table. He reached for the steak knife on his plate. In one fluid motion, he pinned Peterson's hand to the mahogany wood. Peterson screamed a high-pitched wail that echoed off the velvet walls. The Russian boss, Volkov, reached for his jacket. "Don't," Damon said calmly, not even looking at him. Two shadows detached themselves from the corners of the room, Damon's bodyguards. They had submachine guns raised before Volkov could even twitch. Damon stood up. He adjusted his cufflinks. He looked at the Russian. "Sniper on the roof. That's rude, Nikolai. Very rude." He pulled out his phone and typed a single message. A moment later, a muffled thud was heard from the ceiling above them, followed by the vibration of a heavy body hitting the roof deck. "Problem solved," Damon said cold. "Now get out of my city before I peel the skin off your bones." Volkov, looking like he had seen a ghost, grabbed his men and fled. They didn't walk. They ran. Peterson was sobbing, pinned to the table. Damon ignored him. He turned slowly to Lydia. She was shaking. The adrenaline was crashing, leaving her lightheaded. She had just saved the life of the most dangerous man in New York. Damon stepped closer to her. He smelled of sandalwood and danger. He reached out and took the tray from her hands, tossing it carelessly onto the floor. It clattered loudly. "Who are you?" he asked. It wasn't a question. It was a demand. "Lydia," she whispered. "Lydia Hart." "Well, Lydia Hart," Damon said, reaching into his pocket. He pulled out a heavy roll of cash and stuffed it into her apron pocket. Then he grabbed her chin, tilting her face up to his. His fingers were hot. "You're fired." Lydia blinked, tears stinging her eyes. "What? You're fired from this dump," he clarified. His thumb brushed her lower lip, a gesture that was shockingly intimate. "Starting tomorrow, you work for me." Lydia didn't sleep that night. She sat on the edge of her sagging mattress in Queens, staring at the stack of $100 bills Damon had shoved into her apron. $5,000. It was more than she made in 3 months. She should run. That was the smart thing to do. She should pack her bags, take her mom, and move to Iowa. Somewhere with cornfields and 0 Mafia dons. But at 8:00 a.m. sharp, there was a knock on her door. Lydia froze. She lived in a 4th-floor walk-up with a broken buzzer. No one knocked on her door unless they were lost or selling something. She looked through the peephole. Standing in the hallway, looking absurdly out of place among the peeling paint and cooking smells of the tenement was a man in a charcoal suit. It wasn't Damon. It was an older man, distinguished, holding a tablet. Lydia opened the door a crack, keeping the chain on. "Yes." "Miss Hart," the man said. "My name is Silas Vance. I am Mr. Cross's chief of staff. The car is waiting." I didn't say yes," Lydia stammered. Silas smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Mr. Cross does not make offers, Miss Hart. He gives directives. Besides, your mother's transfer to the Presbyterian Specialized Care Unit has already been arranged. Dr. Aris Thorne, the best oncologist in the country, is reviewing her case as we speak." Lydia felt the blood drain from her face. "How do you know about my mother? We know everything," Silas said simply. "Please, the car is blocking a fire hydrant." 10 minutes later, Lydia was in the back of a black Maybach, watching her neighborhood disappear. She wasn't just hired, she was owned. They drove into Manhattan, past the tourist traps, straight into the financial district. The car pulled up to a glass skyscraper that pierced the clouds. The Cross Tower. Lydia was ushered through a private lobby into a private elevator that had no buttons, just a card scanner. Her ears popped as they ascended 60 floors in seconds. The doors opened into a penthouse office that was larger than her entire apartment building. It was all glass, steel, and modern art. And there, standing by the window looking out over the Hudson River, was Damon. He wasn't wearing a suit jacket today. He wore a white dress shirt with the sleeves rolled up, revealing muscular forearms, and a watch that probably cost more than a house. "You're late," he said without turning around. "I didn't know I was coming," Lydia shot back. The fear was there, but so was the anger. "You can't just kidnap people, Mr. Cross." Damon turned. A slow smirk spread across his face. "Kidnap, I upgraded you, Lydia. You were serving drinks to pigs. Now you're going to help me slaughter them." He walked over to his massive desk and picked up a thick file. He tossed it to her. "What is this?" she asked, catching it. "Peterson was a rat," Damon said, walking around the desk to lean against it, crossing his ankles. "But he wasn't smart. He was using a book cipher to encode my messages to the European suppliers. I need you to break it. I need to know who he was talking to, and exactly how much money he stole from me." Lydia opened the file. It was pages and pages of transcripts, numbers, garbled Russian, Italian. "I'm a student," Lydia said, "not a code breaker for the mob." "You're a genius," Damon corrected. "I saw your transcripts, perfect scores, IQ of 165. You speak 5 languages fluently. You have a knack for patterns." He stepped closer, invading her personal space again. The air between them crackled. "And you have a debt to pay." "I don't owe you anything," she said, backing up until she hit the wall. Damon placed a hand on the wall beside her head, boxing her in. He leaned down, his lips inches from her ear. "I saved your life last night, Lydia. If Volkov had stood up, his men would have sprayed the room. You would be dead. My men would be dead. Instead, you spoke. You changed the future." He pulled back to look her in the eyes. "Translate the files. Find the leak. If you do, your mother's medical bills are paid for life. If you fail, well, let's just say the severance package is permanent." Lydia looked at the files in her hand. Then she looked at the man who held her life in his grasp. She realized with a jolt of terror that she wasn't just scared of him. She was fascinated by him. "I need a computer," she said, "and coffee black." Damon's grin widened. It was the smile of the devil getting exactly what he wanted. "Silas will get you anything you need. Welcome to the family, Lydia." 48 hours. That was how long Lydia Hart had been locked in the glass tower. She hadn't seen the sun, only the artificial glow of 3 monitors and the sprawling city lights of New York below. The coffee pot was her only friend. Damon Cross had given her a task that the NSA would have struggled with. The transcripts from Peterson weren't just coded. They were a linguistic nightmare. Peterson had used a chaotic mix of Cockney rhyming slang, transliterated Russian, and a numeric shift based on the Fibonacci sequence. It was brilliant in a frantic, rat-like way. Lydia rubbed her temples, her eyes burning. She was wearing one of Damon's spare shirts, which hung off her small frame like a dress, smelling faintly of tobacco and expensive cedar. Her uniform had been discarded in a trash can hours ago. "You're staring at the screen, like it insulted your ancestors," a voice rumbled from the doorway. Lydia didn't jump. She was too tired for fear. She spun the ergonomic chair around. Damon was standing there, leaning against the doorframe. He looked fresh-showered, wearing a black turtleneck that emphasized the width of his shoulders. He held a plate of food steak, rare with asparagus. "It's not an insult," Lydia murmured, her voice raspy. "It's a riddle." Peterson wasn't just translating for the Russians. He was brokering a side deal. Damon walked over and set the plate on the desk right on top of a stack of files. "Eat. You look like a ghost." "I found a pattern," Lydia said, ignoring the food. She pointed at the screen. "Look at the timestamps on the messages. They always align with the tidal charts of the Port of Newark." Damon frowned, moving behind her chair. He placed a hand on the back of it, leaning over her shoulder. His heat radiated against her back, making her breath hitch. "Explain." "He uses the word bluebird every time the tide is high." Lydia said, her fingers flying across the keyboard to highlight the text. "I thought it was a code name for a person, but in Russian criminal slang from the 90s, bluebird sinaya ptitsa referred to heroin. But the syndicate doesn't move drugs, right? You deal in arms and tech." "Correct," Damon said, his voice hardening. "No powder. That's the rule." "Peterson was moving it," Lydia said softly. "Inside your shipping containers. He was smuggling heroin in the hollowed-out casings of the guidance systems you sell to the contractors. And he wasn't doing it alone." She hit the enter key. A map popped up on the screen, connecting the digital dots she had spent 2 days analyzing. "The messages weren't going to Volkov," Lydia revealed. "They were being routed through a server in the Cayman Islands. The final recipient is a shell company called Aurelius Holdings." Damon went rigid. His hand tightened on the back of her chair, so hard the leather creaked. "Aurelius? You know them. It's not a them," Damon spat, standing up and pacing to the window. The city lights reflected in his cold eyes. "It's a him. Sebastian Cole. My godfather." Lydia froze. She knew the name. Sebastian Cole was a philanthropist, a billionaire who built hospitals and libraries. He was the face of clean money in New York. "Your godfather is a drug lord. He's the man who taught me how to tie a tie and how to hide a body." Damon said, his voice devoid of emotion. "He retired 5 years ago. Gave me the territory. Said he wanted to cleanse his soul." Damon turned back to Lydia, his face a mask of fury. "If Cole is using my logistics to move heroin, he's not just making money. He's framing me. If the feds find that product in my containers, I go away for life. And he takes the empire back, looking like the savior stepping in to clean up his godson's mess." "There's more," Lydia said, hesitating. This was the part that terrified her. "Tell me." The last message Peterson sent, it wasn't about a shipment. It was a date. January 12th. The gala. The Red Room. Lydia looked at the calendar on the wall. That's tonight. Damon stared at her. The silence stretched heavy and dangerous. The Metropolitan Museum Charity Gala. Damon realized. Cole is hosting it. He invited me 3 months ago. I wasn't going to go. He needs you there, Lydia deduced. Why? To kill me, Damon said simply. Or to arrest me, publicly. He walked back to the desk, grabbed the plate of steak, and shoved a forkful of meat toward her mouth. Eat. You need the energy. Lydia blinked, taking the bite automatically. Why? Damon smirked, but there was no humor in it. It was a wolf baring its teeth before a hunt. Because, Lydia Hart, you're not just my translator anymore. Tonight, you're my fiancé. The transformation was brutal and efficient. A team of 3 stylists descended on the penthouse suite like a tactical squad. Lydia was scrubbed, waxed, polished, and painted. There was no time for modesty. She was a mannequin, being prepped for war. When they were finished, Lydia stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling mirror and didn't recognize the woman staring back. She wore a gown of liquid, midnight blue silk that clung to every curve before cascading to the floor. The back was entirely open, exposing her spine. Her hair, usually tied in a messy bun, was styled in glamorous Hollywood waves. On her neck sat a diamond necklace that felt heavy, cold, and undeniably real. Does it fit? Lydia turned. Damon was standing at the entrance of the dressing room. He was wearing a tuxedo that was cut so sharply it could probably draw blood. He looked like James Bond's evil, better-looking brother. He stopped walking. His eyes swept over her, starting at her heels and traveling slowly up to her eyes. He didn't say a word, but his pupils dilated. It fits, Lydia said, feeling a blush rise up her neck. But I can't walk in these heels, and I definitely can't run. You won't have to run, Damon said, stepping closer. You stick to me. If I move, you move. If I stop, you stop. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Inside was a ring, a massive emerald-cut diamond set in platinum. Give me your hand. Lydia hesitated, then extended her left hand. Damon slid the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. It's a tracker, he said quietly, still holding her hand. If we get separated, press the stone down for 3 seconds. My security team will tear the building apart to find you. Is it really that dangerous? Lydia asked. It's a charity gala. There will be senators, celebrities. The perfect cover, Damon said. He lifted her hand and brushed his lips against her knuckles. The contact sent a jolt of electricity straight to Lydia's stomach. Cole loves an audience. He won't try a hit on the dance floor. He'll try to get me alone. That's what the message meant. The Red Room. It's a private lounge inside the exhibit. So we avoid the Red Room, Lydia reasoned. No. Damon corrected, his eyes dark. We walk right into it, but we do it on my terms. I need you to listen, Lydia. Really listen. Cole speaks 4 languages, but he has a tell. When he's lying, he switches syntax structures. He uses passive voice. You catch him doing that, you squeeze my arm. Twice. And if he orders his men to kill us. Damon reached behind his back and pulled out a small pearl-handled pistol. He lifted the slit of her dress and slid the gun into the garter on her thigh. The metal was cold against her skin. Then you shoot, Damon said. Aim for the center of mass. Don't close your eyes. He stepped back, offering his arm. Ready to meet the family? Lydia took a deep breath. She touched the diamond tracker on her finger, then the cold steel on her thigh. She was a doctoral student. She studied syntax and phonemes. Now she was walking into a seaman's den with the king of the jungle. Ready, she lied. The Metropolitan Museum of Art was transformed. The Temple of Dendur was bathed in golden light, filled with the elite of New York. A string quartet played softly, competing with the hum of gossip and the clinking of champagne flutes. As Damon and Lydia entered, the room went quiet. It was the same silence from the club, but magnified. Hundreds of eyes turned to them. Damon Cross, the reclusive prince of the underworld, had arrived, and he had a woman on his arm. Cameras flashed a blinding staccato of light. Damon didn't blink. He placed a possessive hand on the small of Lydia's back, guiding her through the shark tank. "Smile," he whispered in her ear. "You adore me. I'm the love of your life." Lydia forced a smile, leaning into him. "You're an arrogant sociopath," she whispered back, beaming at a photographer. "And you're beautiful when you're terrified," he retorted, nodding at a senator. They moved through the crowd. Lydia's senses were on high alert. She was doing what she did best, analyzing data. She listened to the snippets of conversation around them. Stock drop. Cross is finished. Midnight announcement. "They know," Lydia murmured, not moving her lips. "People are whispering about an announcement at midnight. Something about your companies." "Cole's move," Damon said, tight-jawed. "He's going to announce the hostile takeover or the federal investigation. He wants to destroy my reputation before he destroys my body." "Damon!" A booming voice cut through the noise. Standing by the ancient Egyptian sandstone was a man who looked like a benevolent grandfather. Silver hair, a tuxedo with a red velvet cummerbund, and a smile that seemed too wide. Sebastian Cole. "Uncle," Damon said, stopping. He didn't extend his hand. Cole didn't seem to mind. He stepped forward, opening his arms. "I didn't think you'd come. And who is this stunning creature?" "Lydia," Damon said. "My fiancée." Cole's eyes flickered. Just for a microsecond. A tiny crack in the mask. Lydia saw it. He wasn't expecting Damon to bring anyone, let alone a witness. "Fiancé." Cole laughed, clapping Damon on the shoulder. "You work fast, boy. A pleasure, my dear, my..." He took Lydia's hand and kissed it. His lips were dry. "I hope you know what you're getting into. This family. We have history." "I love history," Lydia said smoothly, keeping her voice light. "Damon tells me you taught him everything he knows." "Not everything," Cole said, his eyes locking onto Damon's. "Some things you have to learn the hard way." "Damon, my boy, we have business. The Red Room, 10 minutes. "We'll be there," Damon said. "Alone," Cole added. "Family matters." "Lydia is family." Damon countered his voice, leaving no room for argument. "She comes or I leave." Cole paused. He looked at Lydia, assessing her. He clearly decided she was just a pretty ornament, nothing to worry about. "Very well. Bring the girl. Maybe she can learn something." Cole walked away, disappearing into the shadows of the exhibit. "He's nervous," Lydia whispered as soon as he was gone. "He used the conditional tense when he said, 'Maybe she can learn.' And his hand, he was tapping his ring against his glass. Same rhythm as Peterson." "He's signaling his team," Damon said. "We have 10 minutes. Do you want to run?" "There's a service exit behind the sarcophagus." Lydia looked up at him. She saw the tension in his jaw, the way his eyes scanned the perimeter, constantly protecting her. For 2 days, she had seen the monster the world feared, but she had also seen the man who sat with her while she worked, who made sure she ate, who respected her mind. If she ran, he died. "I'm not running," Lydia said. "Let's go translate some lies." Damon looked at her with an intensity that made her knees weak. "If we survive this," he growled, "I'm going to buy you the entire museum." They walked toward the red room. It was a private viewing gallery draped in heavy crimson curtains, isolated from the rest of the gala. Inside, Sebastian Cole stood by a fireplace. He wasn't alone. 4 men stood in the corners of the room. They wore tuxedos, but they bulged in the wrong places. "Champagne?" Cole asked, gesturing to a bottle on the table. "Cut the act, Sebastian," Damon said, his voice echoing in the small room. "I know about Aurelius Holdings. I know about the heroin in the guidance systems." Cole's smile vanished. He sighed, looking disappointed. "You were always too clever for your own good, Damon. I tried to protect you. I tried to give you a clean way out. By framing me..." Damon stepped forward, shielding Lydia with his body. "By retiring you," Cole snapped. "You're soft, Damon. You're trying to legitimize the syndicate. You're turning us into a corporation. We are wolves, not accountants. The heroin, that is quick cash. That is power. And you were getting in the way. So you kill me," Damon said, "and take it all back." "I don't want to," Cole said, shrugging. "But the board agrees. It's a necessary correction." Cole raised his hand. The 4 men in the corners reached into their jackets. "Wait!" Lydia screamed. It was the second time in 3 days she had stopped a murder with a word. Cole looked at her, annoyed. "What?" Lydia stepped out from behind Damon. Her heart was hammering so hard she thought it would explode, but her brain was icy cool. "You can't kill him," Lydia said, her voice steady. "Because if you do, the email I scheduled goes out to the FBI, the DEA, and the New York Times in exactly..." She checked her watch. 3 minutes. Cole laughed. "The dead man's switch a classic bluff, my dear." "It's not a bluff," Lydia said. "And it's not just the files. It's the decryption key for your offshore accounts in the Caymans. I broke the Fibonacci cipher, Sebastian. I have the names of your buyers, the cartel leaders in Sinaloa. The triad connection in Hong Kong, I have it all." She switched to fluent Mandarin, quoting a message she had decoded hours ago. "The bluebird flies at midnight, but the cage is made of gold." Cole's face went pale. That was a message he had sent personally to a triad leader only 6 hours ago. There was no way she could know that, unless she had total access. "You..." Cole pointed a shaking finger at her. "Who is she?" "She's the smartest person in the room," Damon said, a dark pride in his voice. "And she's right. Kill us, and you lose everything. Your money, your reputation, your freedom. You'll die in a federal prison." Cole hesitated. His eyes darted to his men, then to Damon. The certainty was gone. "Call them off," Damon ordered, "and sign the transfer of Aurelius Holdings to me. Tonight. Right now." "Or what?" Cole sneered, though he looked like a cornered rat. "Or Lydia presses send," Damon said. It was a standoff. The air crackled with violence. Suddenly, one of the guards behind Damon raised his gun. He wasn't waiting for Cole's order. He was a hired gun, and he was getting impatient. "Damon down!" Lydia screamed. She didn't think. She tackled Damon, shoving him hard. The gun went off. Bang! A vase shattered where Damon's head had been a second ago. Damon hit the floor and rolled the movement, practiced and fluid. He didn't reach for a gun. He reached for a knife concealed in his sleeve. He threw it. The blade buried itself in the shooter's throat. Chaos erupted. "Kill them!" Cole shrieked, diving behind the sofa. Lydia scrambled on the floor, the silk dress tearing. She reached for the garter, her fingers fumbling for the cold metal of the pistol Damon had given her. Another guard charged at her. He was huge, a mountain of muscle. He raised a boot to stomp on her. Bang! Bang! 2 shots rang out. The guard dropped like a stone, clutching his chest. Damon stood over Lydia, his smoking gun in hand. His face was a mask of pure, unadulterated rage. He wasn't looking at the man he shot. He was looking at the others. "Anyone else touches her?" Damon roared, his voice shaking the walls. "And I will burn this entire city to the ground." The remaining 2 guards hesitated. They looked at their dead comrades. They looked at the demon in the tuxedo. They dropped their guns. Damon didn't relax. He kept his gun trained on the sofa where Cole was hiding. He reached down with his other hand and hauled Lydia to her feet. "Are you hurt?" he demanded, his eyes frantically scanning her for blood. "I'm fine," Lydia gasped, adrenaline flooding her veins. "I'm fine." Damon grabbed her face and kissed her hard, a bruising, desperate kiss that tasted of fear and survival. Then he pulled back, turning his attention to the sofa. "It's over, Sebastian," Damon called out. "Come out and sign the papers, or I let my fiancée finish the job." The silence in the red room was heavier than the gunshot had been. The smell of cordite, sharp and metallic, hung in the air, mixing with the scent of expensive perfume and the coppery tang of blood. Sebastian Cole, the man who had controlled the East Coast Underground for 30 years, sat slumped on the velvet sofa. He looked small, defeated. He picked up a Mont Blanc pen with a shaking hand. "You're making a mistake, Damon," Cole rasped, signing the document that transferred Aurelius Holdings and all its assets to a blind trust controlled by Damon. "You think you can just go legitimate? You think the Senate, the FBI, the IRS will just let you walk away because you bought a few hospitals?" "I'm not walking away," Damon said, holstering his weapon, but keeping his eyes fixed on the old man. "I'm evolving, something you refused to do." Lydia stood by the fireplace, her arms wrapped around herself. The adrenaline was fading, replaced by a bone-deep chill. She watched Damon. He was terrifyingly calm. He had just shot 3 men, and his heart rate hadn't seemingly spiked. Cole finished signing. He tossed the pen onto the table. "There. It's yours. The shipping routes, the shell companies, the debt ledgers." He looked at Lydia, a cruel smile twisting his lips. "And the girl's file." Damon stiffened. "What?" Cole reached into his tuxedo jacket. Damon flinched, hand going to his gun, but Cole only pulled out a small, crumpled envelope. He slid it across the table toward Lydia. "Did you really think it was a coincidence?" Cole asked softly, his eyes gleam with malice. "That a waitress with a genius-level IQ and fluency in 5 languages just happened to be working at the Obsidian on the exact night my Russian contact was there." Lydia stepped forward, her legs feeling like lead. She picked up the envelope. "Don't open it," Damon commanded, his voice sharp. Lydia ignored him. She tore the seal. Inside was a single sheet of paper. It was a surveillance log. Dates, times, photos of her leaving the university, photos of her mother in the hospital, and a financial transaction record. Sender Aurelius Holdings, recipient Mount Sinai, billing debt, memo rejection of insurance claim, terminal coverage. Lydia gasped, the room spinning. She looked at Cole with horror. "You blocked my mother's insurance approval." "I bought the insurance company's debt 3 years ago," Cole admitted, sounding bored. "I flagged your mother's account. I knew the financial pressure would break you. I knew you'd look for quick cash. I needed a code breaker, Lydia. I was grooming you. I was going to offer you a job next week." He chuckled darkly. "Damon just happened to find you first. But make no mistake, my dear. You were never a person to us. You were always just a resource to be acquired." Lydia felt like she had been punched in the gut. Her entire life, her struggle, her poverty, her mother's suffering had been engineered by this man, just so he could use her brain for his criminal empire. And Damon, she looked at Damon. He wasn't looking at Cole. He was looking at her, his expression unreadable. "Did you know?" Lydia whispered. "Lydia!" Damon started stepping toward her. "Did you know?" She screamed, her voice cracking. "I didn't know he caused it." Damon said, his voice low and intense. "But I knew who you were the moment you walked up to that table. I knew you were Cole's target. That's why I hired you. To keep you away from him. To keep me away. Or to use me yourself." Lydia threw the papers at him. They fluttered down like snow. "You're all the same. You play with people's lives like it's a game of chess." "I saved your life," Damon roared, the control finally snapping. "Tonight in the club. Every step of the way. You put me in the line of fire." Lydia countered, tears streaming down her face. "I want out. The deal is done. The code is broken. Cole is finished. I want my life back." Damon stared at her. For a moment he looked like he was going to argue, to command, to force her to stay. But then he looked at the fear in her eyes, the exhaustion. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath. When he opened them, the steel was back. "Fine," he said coldly. "Reed is outside with the car. He'll take you to the hospital. Your mother has been moved to a private suite. It's paid for. Forever." "I don't want your money," Lydia sobbed. "It's not my money," Damon said, turning his back on her to face Cole. "It's your severance package. Go, before I change my mind." Lydia didn't hesitate. She ran. She ran out of the red room, past the dead bodies, through the panicked gala guests, who were just realizing something was wrong, and out into the cool New York night. She didn't look back. Silence in the red room was a physical weight. It pressed against Lydia's eardrums, heavier than the roar of the gunshot that had shattered the vase moments ago. The air was thick, suffocatingly hot, and carried the stinging metallic scent of cordite mixed with the copper tang of blood. Damon Cross stood over the coffee table, his chest heaving slightly beneath his ruined tuxedo. He didn't look like a victor. He looked like a statue carved from grief and violence. The gun in his hand was lowered, but his knuckles were white, straining against the grip as if he were fighting the urge to raise it one last time. On the velvet sofa, Sebastian Cole looked small. The titan of the East Coast, the man who had terrified senators and dissolved unions with a whisper, was now just an old man with shaking hands. "Sign it," Damon commanded. His voice was a low growl stripped of all the charm he had worn in the ballroom. "Sign it and disappear, Sebastian. It's the only mercy you're going to get." Cole picked up the Mont Blanc pen. It clicked against the glass table, a tiny sound that echoed loudly in the stillness. He looked at the document transferring Aurelius Holdings to Damon's blind trust. It was the end of his reign. The end of 30 years of power. You think you've won? Cole rasped, the ink flowing across the page as he signed his life away. You think because you have the codes and the shipping routes and the girl that you can just wash the blood off your hands? You can't, Damon. The stain doesn't come out. It just turns into rust. I'm not trying to be clean, Damon said, watching the pen move. I'm just trying to be finished. Cole finished the signature with a flourish that was pathetic in its defiance. He tossed the pen onto the table. It rolled and hit the edge of a crystal ashtray. Done, Cole spat. The ships, the shell companies, the debt ledgers, it's all yours. You are now the king of the ashes. Damon reached for the papers, his eyes cold. Get out. If I see you in New York after sunrise, I won't send a lawyer. I'll send a hearse. Cole stood up slowly, smoothing his jacket. He looked at the dead body of his guard, then at Damon, and finally his gaze landed on Lydia. A slow, cruel smile spread across his face, the smile of a man who knows he has one bullet left, and he doesn't need a gun to fire it. I will leave, Cole said softly, but I think there is one more asset we need to transfer. Full disclosure, as the accountants say. He reached into the inner pocket of his tuxedo. Damon's gun snapped up instantly, leveled at Cole's forehead. Don't. Relax, boy. Cole chuckled, the sound dry like dead leaves. No weapons, just a receipt. He pulled out a thick, cream-colored envelope sealed with red wax. He didn't give it to Damon. He slid it across the glass table, pushing it toward Lydia. Lydia was standing by the fireplace, shivering despite the heat. The adrenaline was crashing, leaving her nauseous. She looked at the envelope. It had her name on it. Lydia Hart, written in elegant calligraphy. What is this? She whispered. The truth, Cole said. Open it, unless you prefer to remain a pet. Lydia, don't, Damon warned. His voice held a note of panic that Lydia had never heard before. He stepped toward her, reaching out to intercept the envelope. Whatever is in there, it's a lie. He's trying to poison you. Is it? Cole countered. Whatever is in that envelope, Damon, you paid for it. Indirectly, of course. Lydia looked at Damon. The fear in his eyes wasn't for himself. It was guilt. She snatched the envelope before Damon could touch it. Her fingers trembled as she broke the wax seal. Inside was a dossier. Not a thick one, just 3 pages. She pulled out the first page. It was a photocopy of an internal email from Aurelius Holdings dated 2 years ago. Subject, candidate recruitment. Project Cipher. Target, Lydia Hart, doctoral candidate, Columbia. Status watch list. Lydia frowned. You were watching me 2 years ago. Keep reading, Cole urged gently. Lydia turned the page. The second document was a financial directive. To Mount Sinai Hospital Billing Department. Rapid Claims Denials, Inc. Repatient, Martha Hart, Oncology. Instruction, override, standard approval. Flag as experimental, high risk. Deny all coverage requests under subsection 44B. Initiate maximum debt collection protocol. Authorized by S. Cole. The room spun. The floor seemed to tilt beneath Lydia's feet. She couldn't breathe. The air in her lungs turned to glass. She remembered that day. The day the letter came. The day the insurance company said no. The day the doctor told her that without the $201,000 treatment, her mother would die in agony. That was the day Lydia had stopped sleeping. That was the day she had taken the extra shifts at the Obsidian. That was the day she had become desperate enough to become invisible. It hadn't been bad luck. It hadn't been a bureaucratic error. It had been a strategy. You. Lydia looked up, her vision blurring with hot tears. She looked at Cole with horror. You blocked her treatment. You made her suffer for what? To break you, Cole said simply, as if discussing the weather. I needed a code breaker who was brilliant but desperate. Someone with nothing to lose but everything to fight for. Happy people don't work for the Mafia, Lydia. Broken people do. I broke you so I could buy you. I was going to make you an offer next week. Damon just happened to find you first. Lydia let out a sound that was half sob, half scream. She felt violated in a way that was deeper than any physical wound. Her entire life, her mother's pain, her poverty. It was all just a line item in a ledger for these men. She turned to Damon. He was standing frozen, his face pale. He wasn't looking at Cole. He was looking at the papers in her hand. Did you know? Lydia asked. Her voice was barely a whisper, but it cut through the room like a razor. Lydia. Damon started taking a step forward. Did you know? She screamed, throwing the papers at him. They fluttered in the air, drifting down between them like white feathers. I didn't know he caused it, Damon said rapidly, his intensity terrifying. I swear to you. I didn't know he blocked the insurance. But you knew who I was, Lydia accused, backing away from him. In the club, when you fired me, when you kidnapped me, you knew I was his target. Yes, Damon admitted. I saw your file on his server a week ago. I knew he was grooming you. That's why I took you. To save me. Lydia laughed, a harsh, hysterical sound. Or to steal me. You didn't hire me to protect me, Damon. You hired me because you wanted the asset before he got it. You're just like him. You just pay better. I am nothing like him, Damon roared, slamming his hand against the wall. The sound made the remaining guards flinch. I saved your life tonight. I took a bullet for you. Does that mean nothing? You put me in front of the gun in the first place, Lydia cried, tears streaming down her face, ruining the makeup the stylists had spent hours applying. This dress, this ring, this game, it's all blood. It's all built on people like me, suffering so men like you can feel powerful. She ripped the diamond ring from her finger. It felt heavy, like a shackle. She threw it at him. It hit his chest and bounced off, clattering onto the floor next to the dead body. I'm done, Lydia said, her voice shaking, but resolute. I want out. The code is broken. The empire is yours. I want my life back. Damon stared at the ring on the floor. Then he looked at Lydia. He saw the exhaustion in her posture. He saw the way she looked at him not with love or even fear anymore, but with revulsion. He could force her to stay. He had the power. He could lock her in the tower, keep her as his golden bird. But he remembered the way she had looked standing up to the Russian. He remembered her brilliance. If he caged her, he would destroy the very thing he admired. Damon's shoulders sagged. The fight drained out of him. Reed is outside, Damon said, his voice dead. The car is waiting. He'll take you to the hospital. Your mother has been moved to the private suite at Presbyterian. The account is fully funded. For life. I don't want your money, Lydia sobbed. It's not charity, Damon snapped, turning his back on her so she wouldn't see his face. It's a transaction. You did the work. You get the payment. Now go, before I change my mind. Lydia didn't hesitate. She didn't say goodbye. She turned and ran. She ran out of the red room, past the stunned caterers, through the gala, where the orchestra was still playing a waltz, oblivious to the tragedy that had just occurred. she burst out of the museum doors and into the cool, biting wind of the New York night. She was free. She was safe. She had saved her mother. But as she stood on the sidewalk, gasping for air, Lydia realized with a sinking heart that she had left the only part of herself that felt alive back in that room, standing amidst the wreckage of a broken kingdom. And that is the story of how a waitress brought the Mafia to its knees, not with a gun, but with a dictionary. It's a reminder that sometimes the most dangerous weapon in the room isn't the muscle, it's the mind. Damon thought he was the predator, but he ended up being the one captured. What did you think of Lydia's choice? Would you have forgiven Damon after finding out about the manipulation, or would you have taken the money and run? I honestly think she was crazy to go back. But maybe that's what love is, a little bit of madness. If you enjoyed this roller coaster of romance, danger, and justice, please smash that like button. It really helps the channel grow. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss a story. Share this video with a friend who loves a bad boy with a soft spot. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.